there was so much tension in the room. It made the entire holiday feel really hostile. And the thing was, there wasn't any yelling or fighting. It was more just the passive aggressive, the undertone, and like the hidden meaning behind someone's words. Like when people say, oh, everything's fine, but really everything's not fine. So I wasn't really prepared for that. And especially coming from a household where I thought that I understood what dysfunction looks like, I thought that I understood the signs of abuse, but I didn't realize that there was an entirely separate category of covert abuse. I'm talking about the passive aggressive, muttering something under your breath about someone else, basically just criticizing the other person and making them feel bad about themselves, but not doing it in a direct enough way. Like, it kind of just felt like there was a lot of resentment kind of just building underneath the surface that wasn't being articulated. And to me, I think that this comes from years of suppressing one's own emotions to the point where you don't even know what the underlying issue is anymore because it's been suppressed. And so all of that anger just has to come out in different ways. Bickering over like the little things, condescending remarks. And it wasn't just the way that they talked to me, it was just the way that they talked to each other. So every year, essentially, there's this debate, amongst the kids. So there's my ex, his older brother and older sister, and everybody lives in different states. And I guess this is just a common theme in families. Let me know if you've experienced this too, where there's kind of this fight to be the host, right? Like, who's going to host Christmas this year? Nobody wants to travel and deal with like the airport, traffic and craziness. And so everybody wants the whole family to get together at their house, right? So there's some, back and forth, some debate in the family about who's going to host, right? The brother wants to host in West Virginia, the sister wants to host in Illinois, and the parents want to host and they live in California. And so there was just kind of this, they were at this stalemate of like, who's going to move first, right? Like the brother just dug his heels in and said, I have two young children. I am not dealing with the airport on Christmas, which is totally fair and valid. And so the parents just said, well, I guess we're just not going to see each other for Christmas then because nobody wants to come visit us. And so the siblings ended up caving and just going to the parents' house in California like they normally do, and that's normally the plan for Christmas. But the way that the older brother handled this was so unbelievably childish and really toxic, in my opinion. So he basically just wanted to put everybody out to kind of let everybody know how upset he was that this was the decision that was made, that nobody wanted to come out and let him be the host for Christmas. And so I'm talking like bringing like 5 suitcases to the airport. They're staying for like 3 nights. They have these 2 kids. They had to bring like a crib, a stroller, all of these extremely large toys that all needed to be checked and like put underneath the plane. Like, it was so over the top, so excessive. Each of their kids had like their own like full-sized suitcase where it's like their clothes could have probably fit in a backpack, like it was just like nothing was spared. They brought like full-sized bottles of shampoo and body wash, and even after all of that, they still sent the mom to the store to go buy them more stuff. They're like, we can't have this type of laundry detergent. You need to go to Target and get us this one specific brand because, the whole family has like skin sensitivities. Why do you have to be doing laundry when you're only staying somewhere for 3 days? Like, clearly they were just using this to kind of weaponize that guilt and kind of hold it over the family's head. But then, of course, who gets scapegoated? It's the mom, right? The one who's the peacekeeper, the one who just will bend over backwards to accommodate every single person's needs and just trying to do the right thing so that nobody's mad, right? So she again falls into the role of the emotional caretaker, and older brother is kind of bullying his mom. He's saying, you have to do this for us. You have to go to the store and buy my kid, these special snacks because they can only eat this one thing. And he's basically just trying to put it on somebody else, make it their problem that he's uncomfortable or he doesn't like the decision that was made. So after witnessing this really childish behavior, it really just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about how this family operates in general. I mean, it was really clear that they don't use a direct style of communication, and instead everything is very covert, it's very passive aggressive. You know, nobody actually says what they feel, but they're definitely going to make it known that they're unhappy without actually saying any of those words. So I just felt that it was really childish and it was worth bringing up. Because one, I feel like this is a really common dilemma that a lot of families find themselves in when people live in different states, you know, and then there's some friendly debate that doesn't necessarily turn hostile every year about who's going to host for Christmas or Thanksgiving, etc. And I feel like that agreement can be reached in a much more peaceful way. But then the escalation of the older brother in the family, who he's the oldest, he's a parent. Like, there should be some level of emotional maturity there in the way that he carries himself and the kind of example that he sets for his kids. I could just feel it in my gut that this was the last time I was going to be here doing this. I had this realization of, you know, my family may not be perfect, but we don't do this. Like, there's no hostility. I mean, we wouldn't have like this enormous party with like 30 people and all the catering and all the food and all that, but it would probably just be me and my dad. But there wouldn't be any of this like passive aggressive, like back and forth, you know, pretending like everything's fine when really on the inside you're seething. So yeah, I grew up in a high conflict household, but at least we shared what was on our mind and we could articulate how we were feeling without necessarily making our emotions somebody else's problem. So that's something that I really learned how to do growing up, and I'm really thankful that I learned how to articulate how I was feeling and expressing my emotions in a healthy way. And also, years of therapy helped as well. But I have not developed these passive aggressive strategies of getting what I want. And so that was always something that just really sat with me about how my ex's family kind of interacted with each other, and how on the surface to the outside world, anybody who was witnessing them would have thought that they were just a really healthy family and that they get together every year and they're just so happy and they all get along. But really, like behind closed doors, it was the complete opposite. What stood out to me the most wasn't the disagreement itself, it was how nobody was willing to communicate directly. And for me personally, I need to have that direct communication, and I learned this about myself through going through that experience in that relationship and then going through the breakup, where I learned that I do not have the capacity to be able to read between the lines and try to decipher hidden meaning behind somebody's words. Like, if somebody doesn't come to me directly and say, hey, I'm mad at you, you did X, then there's nothing that I can do to fix it, right? And I'm not going to exert any amount of mental energy trying to understand if this person's upset with me and trying to figure it out. So if you're watching this right now and you've experienced something like this, I just want you to know that you do not have to take responsibility for anybody else's emotions. Unless someone clearly communicates to you that you've done something wrong, you can safely assume that you have done nothing wrong. That is their responsibility to communicate to you if they're upset with you, and it's their responsibility to come to you with that information in an effort to make it right. It's not your job to try to understand what you did wrong if nobody is communicating to you directly. And at first, I just thought that I was witnessing maybe they were just having a one-off, family conflict. Every family kind of has those moments. But then I started to put the pieces together and realize that this was a pattern. This was just the way that the family deals with conflict in general, and I wasn't just witnessing them on a bad day. And that's why passive aggression feels so confusing, because the conflict is happening. It's just that nobody is acknowledging that the conflict is happening. It's like you're expected to feel the tension, but then you're not allowed to actually talk about it. If somebody would rather punish you than tell you that they're hurt, that is a problem with their communication style, and they need to learn how to process their own emotions so that they can articulate them calmly to another person, because that's the first step to repair. So my question for you is, did you grow up in a family where you were allowed to argue openly, or did you grow up in a family where everyone just pretended that everything was fine? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.